Hello, Quotidian Mortal here again, today with something new. I give my opinions on tangible things all the time, but sometimes I think it's important or just fun and enlightening to talk about intangible things. Today is one of those days. Today I bring you the Mandela effect. Now, if you're not familiar with the term, the Mandela effect is a phenomenon that has been gaining traction over the last few years where people claim that their memories don't match real life events, and it's named after the former South African president Nelson Mandela and the belief that many people had that he died while in jail in the 1980s. They claim to have a vivid memory of even seeing his funeral on CNN and other news networks long before he actually passed away in 2013. Personally, I hate this specific term, and it's fitting because it's also why I'm annoyed by the phenomenon itself. Now, I want to preface this by saying I do have belief in the supernatural, in other dimensions, in aliens from other planets, in a higher power. My mind is open. So I'm not coming at this idea from a skeptic's point of view, but rather as someone who likes to question and research things. It's a big motto of mine to make sure you do your research on something before you make a claim about it. This stems mostly from me not wanting to look ignorant, but it's something I suggest that everyone does, because ignorance is passed around way quicker than the truth ever will be. Also, I don't like dealing with ignorant people, so if you're backing up your own claims with bona fide research, I won't have to deal with an uninformed person swearing up and down that they're right when I know they aren't. But I'm going on a tangent here. Another term that I've heard used for this is quantum pollution, which I think is a much better way to describe it, and it accounts for what's actually truly happening in these instances as well. So the reason I don't like the term Mandela effect boils down to it stemming from a large group of people who had no connection or interest in Nelson Mandela. Therefore, didn't actually pay attention to anything that was happening with him. I was a child myself at the time, but my first memory of Nelson Mandela was in fact his release from prison. It should be common knowledge that if you don't care about something very much, you won't remember it correctly. That's what happened in this instance. And I believe every instance of the Mandela effect or quantum pollution. One of my favorite comedians, Pete Holmes, has a bit about how easy it is to find information these days, and the struggle we had to go through to find out the most insignificant thing before we had such easy access to the internet. Having all the answers at your fingertips is a big part in accounting for information overload. How are we supposed to remember anything if we can look up the answer in a matter of seconds? Why should we bother? A generation of humans has grown up in that world, which means they don't have to pay attention to their surroundings. J.C. Penney has an extra E in interview with the vampire, not a vampire. Sex and the City. I thought it was in. Berenstain? These are the most well-known and easiest examples of quantum pollution that most people get dragged under by, and it's understandable. But most of the people who get confused by these things just didn't pay attention. Berenstain was one of the things that got me. I grew up on the Berenstain Bears. I owned almost all their books at a certain point. I was a smart kid, reading early and at a higher comprehension level than my age. Obviously, I'd remember if the book was Berenstain or Berenstein, right? Well, not exactly. I definitely remembered Berenstein, but that doesn't mean that's the way it was. It means that I skimmed over the word every time to get to reading the books. It means that Stein is a way more common suffix than stain, and it's so common that even a child would know that. So you process what you think you're supposed to see, and you move on. It's not that big of a mystery. I saw a video shortly after the death of Prince where someone was crying because they were absolutely convinced that the lyrics in the intro to Let's Go Crazy were changed in space and time. I have a personal connection to that song because the intro used to scare the crap out of me. The organs were just very eerie to me, and the lyrics were unsettling. And because of that, the intro is burned into my mind. It's always been the same. But this person? Crying. Because they were just sure. It was celebrate this thing called life. But listen to the rest of the song. Celebrate makes absolutely no sense in this context. Quantum pollution is probably going to become an epidemic if it hasn't already. It's not going to hurt us as a society. Not really. Not yet. The generation growing up with instant access needs to be taught by the generation above them not to just believe everything they read or see or hear. This is a big part of why fake news is so prevalent right now. People see and share and spout off like it's gospel. No, please check, research, find out from solid sources. It's hard to find a solid source these days, I am well aware, but it isn't impossible. Try. I implore you. You'll soon find that Mandela effect is trash. Because it is. Because it's a large group of people shouting about how they are right and the reality around them is wrong. And not because of injustice or war or lack of education for our young ones or the severe oppression that the majority of this world feels at the hands of the elite. It's because Darth Vader never said, "Luke, I am your father." I'll leave some links in the description box to videos where you can hear people talking about this more in depth. It's really easy to get stuck watching these kind of videos for hours because it is in fact fascinating. Just don't get lost. Thanks for watching.
But I love my cats. And I told her, I said, man,